Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're here today because, well, we are tackling one of the most fascinating shifts happening in tech right now. We are literally witnessing the death of conversational trial and error with AI and the birth of something way more powerful, deterministic AI engineering. For a long time, working with generative AI felt kind of like a stochastic lottery, right? You type a prompt, cross your fingers, and just hope the model sampled the right words. But let's be real, in a production environment, hope is definitely not a strategy. So today, we're going to break down exactly how top-tier engineers are taking large language models from unpredictable, chatty prototypes and turning them into rock-solid, load-bearing infrastructure. Okay, let's dive into this. Think of this agenda as our literal blueprint for today. We're covering 1. From conversation to architecture, 2. Taming in-context learning, 3. The prompt compression paradigm, 4. Hardware caching and economics, and wrapping up with 5. Long-horizon agentic memory.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, from conversation to architecture. Finding the right words just isn't enough anymore.
There is a massive paradigm shift going on. If you look at the left side, you'll see how most of us naturally interact with AI. We're just bouncing around conversational suggestions. And hey, that's great for brainstorming in a local sandbox. But take a look at the right side. That is what real-world production demands: rigid software specifications and strict architectural pillars. When you're deploying an LLM to thousands of users, you simply can't just suggest what it should do. You have to architect a deterministic contract.
Because, without that rigid contract, the whole system just crumbles. Moving a simple prototype prompt to a fully resilient production system, that often takes 20 grueling hours of stress testing and edge case mitigation. And that's just for one single prompt. No way, right? Well, actually, yes. It happens because models process vague instructions exactly like a super inexperienced intern would. They try to build a bridge over any logical gaps using their own autonomous assumptions. And in the world of AI, autonomous assumptions usually just equal hallucinations. So how do engineers actually structure prompts to fix this mess? They target what we call the Goldilocks zone, basically avoiding highly brittle, rigid if-else logic, but also cutting out all that fluffy, vague guidance. It's really cool. Notice the funneling process here. If you're feeding a model massive documents, say over 20,000 tokens, you absolutely have to top-load that heavy data at the very beginning. That way, the AI processes the data before it even sees your instructions. Then you literally fence off that data using XML tags to create incredibly strict semantic boundaries. And lastly, look at the positive framing. Telling a model, do not use Markdown, is actually mathematically harder for it to process than a positive constraint like compose smoothly. We're mathematically nudging the model using structural templates, not negative rules.
Moving right along to Section 2, taming in-context learning.
Now you might be wondering this. Have you ever set up the perfect prompt? You give the model flawless examples of what you want, a technique we call few-shot prompting, and it works like an absolute dream in testing, but then you push it to production and bam, the accuracy just plummets. So why do perfectly good prompts suddenly fail in the wild?
Well, the answer lies in a nasty little thing researchers call the triad of biases. First up is majority label bias. It's kind of like a tipped scale. If you give the model mostly positive examples in your prompt, it skews its internal math to just blindly guess positive for everything. Second is recency bias. Just like it sounds, models will disproportionately overweigh whatever you put at the very end of the sequence. And third is common token bias, where it favors words that just showed up a lot during its baseline training, completely ignoring the specific examples you just gave it. These biases mean the LLM is acting on structural surface forms, not actually doing any real semantic reasoning.
Just to put that into perspective, look at this number, 17 percentage points. That is how much a model's accuracy can fluctuate in text classification tasks merely by changing the order of the exact same examples. You aren't adding or removing any information. You're just shuffling the sequence. And the model's performance wildly swings by 17%. That is a massive, absolutely crucial vulnerability to be aware of.
But don't worry, researchers discovered an incredibly clever trick to fix this called contextual calibration. Here's how it works. Before sending your actual question, they feed the model the prompt followed by a totally meaningless dummy input, something like NA. Now, a perfectly unbiased model should predict all possible answers equally, right? But because of those biases we just talked about, it tilts. By measuring exactly how much it tilts, engineers can calculate an affine transformation. Think of it as a mathematical counterweight. They use this to force the probabilities back to a uniform, totally neutral state. You apply this math to all future queries and boom, you stabilize few-shot learning without needing to do any heavy, expensive retuning of the model's weights.
All right, let's look at Section 3, the prompt compression paradigm.
As our prompts start swelling up to tens of thousands of tokens, we run into the dreaded lost in the middle phenomenon. We have to compress them. Notice the old method on the left side here, unidirectional entropy. It basically uses a smaller model to read left to right and just blindly snips away words that seem predictable. But here's the catch. Because it only looks backward, it constantly deletes words that are absolutely critical for understanding the text that comes after it. On the right, we see the modern gold standard, LLM Lingua 2, which uses bidirectional token classification. It looks at both the preceding and the succeeding text at the exact same time before making a cut.
And here is how this algorithmic pipeline actually comes to life. First, they ask a massive, smart model like GPT-4 to distill a bunch of text purely by deleting words, no hallucinations allowed. This creates a pristine, highly distilled training dataset. Next, they take a hyper-fast, small bidirectional encoder, like MBERT, and train it on that pristine data. Finally, this little model acts like a pair of rapid-fire scissors for your massive prompts. It makes a split-second, binary choice to either keep or drop every single token. Bypassing that slow autoregressive generation strips out the noise and accelerates processing latency by up to 2.9 times. It's a real game changer.
Okay, diving deeper into the hardware layer now with Section 4, Hardware Caching and Economics.
So the crucial point is, when you are caching the mathematical representations of a massive prompt, the underlying architecture is literally everything. Think of early caching methods, like VLLM's paged attention, as the brick wall you see on the left. It's solid, sure, but it's totally rigid. It requires exact sequence matching. If your conversation branches off even a little bit, the cache basically shatters, and you pay to recompute the whole shebang. But on the right, that's the breakthrough. SQ-Lang's radix attention. It maps the cache dynamically, sort of like a branching tree. If a user asks 3 completely different follow-up questions from the exact same root document, the system shares the underlying trunk and only computes the new branches.
And this dynamic hardware innovation? It is radically transforming AI economics. Just look at the table. Notice how steeply the costs plummet when caching is utilized properly. Because those cache tokens entirely bypass the heavy pre-fill computing phase, providers can slash prices. OpenAI drops costs by 50% for cached inputs. Anthropic drops it by a massive 90%. And DeepSeek? They're offering an almost unbelievable 98% cost reduction.
Let's ground this in some business reality for a second. Imagine a high-volume enterprise running an AI assistant that processes, say, 1 million requests a day, all heavily loaded with background context. By properly utilizing prompt caching, their infrastructure cost drops by roughly 68% per interaction. That single architectural optimization alone saves the enterprise over $200,000 every single month. We aren't just talking about faster AI anymore. We're talking about making complex, real-time AI financially viable at scale.
Finally, Section 5, Long Horizon Agentic Memory.
If you push an AI agent's memory to the physical limit of its context window, its reasoning starts to decay into what we call context rot. So what's the defense? It's a progressive, multi-layered strategy. Layer 1 is tool output compression. You intercept a massive API data dump and compress it before it even enters the AI's brain. Layer 2 is sliding window truncation. This acts kind of like a conveyor belt to the trash, chronologically dropping the oldest messages to make room for new ones. But wait, what if you actually need that old context? That's where Layer 3 kicks in. Abstractive summarization. The system literally pauses, dense packs the entire conversation history into a tight summary, flushes out the heavy context window, and reinitializes with just the summary and the newest messages.
But what about an agent that means to work across weeks or even months? That requires persistent agentic memory. In this scenario, we completely bypass that ephemeral context window. Instead, we give the model tools to interface with a client-side file directory. It's exactly like the physical note-taking you see here. If an autonomous coding agent finds a specific bug in a complex file on Tuesday, it literally writes a markdown note to itself. By Friday, in a totally fresh session with a totally clear context window, it can search its own notebook, retrieve the pattern, and instantly fix a similar bug without having to reread the entire massive codebase. It is true cross-session learning.
It's incredibly powerful stuff for sure, but consider this provocative reality. When we give AI persistent memory, it reads its own files with extremely high privilege. So what happens when an autonomous AI is tricked by a malicious web page into saving a dangerous instruction to its permanent memory directory? This delayed vulnerability is what experts call memory poisoning. As we transition from these chatty toys into deterministic, persistent AI, we are building systems of incredible, unprecedented power. But we really have to ask ourselves, are we truly ready to secure what they are quietly writing down in the dark? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you all next time.